Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wordfence Live. This is something we hear nearly every stream. I'd like to get a security certification, but I don't know where to start. Today, we're going to go over the top 10 security certifications and detail what they cover, who should get them, and how you can use security certifications as part of your employment or marketing strategy. Stay tuned. We'll be right back to get started. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us on this edition of Wordfence Live. Today, I will be joined by Chloe Chamberland and Ram Gall to discuss the top 10 security certifications for WordPress. We're going to help you decide which certification may be a good start for you or what to get next, why they are important, what the certification covers, and then some tips and resources for preparation. We're also going to be discussing, some of the tougher certifications for those of you who like a challenge. So, today, whether you're just getting into security and looking to expand your expertise, or you're an experienced developer looking for that next certification, we got you covered on live. If you missed the last two episodes, Mark hosted a remote episode last week. And if you're getting into this security and threat intel, threat research, check out 2 weeks ago. Chloe and Ram talked about their journey here, and it would be an excellent place to go after this stream here. Remember to hit the like button below the video, as well as the subscribe and bell buttons to be notified when we go live. We go live every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Let's get started by bringing in our threat analysts, Chloe Chamberlain and Ram Gall. Chloe, how's it going over there?
Things are going great. I'm really excited to talk about certifications today. And as you notice, I might be in a different location. I am going to start living out of an RV this weekend, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Is it an undisclosed location now?
Yes.
I see.
We'll need you on for the remote part 2 episode. Certainly, you'll probably be on a cruise ship or a beach, but that's okay. We'll make it work. Ram, what's up over there?
It's getting warm in Arizona, and that RV life is starting to look appealing to me too.
I'd love to switch with you. It's we're doing okay here. We're in the 50s, but I'm ready for that warm weather. What do you say? Started off with a swag question. Remember to answer in the form here. This will be multiple choice. The question: what does CISSP stand for? Again, you'll see a link in the chat for that, and you can submit your answer for the multiple choice question. If you're one of the first 5 to correctly guess, you will win swag. If you've won swag in the past and would like to send us some images, please do. We always love getting animal pictures as well. Probably our favorite here on live. So, Chloe, we're going to start this out. Now, we're going to talk about why these are important, why certifications are important to security professionals, IT professionals. But while we're chatting about that, you want job experience as well, but these certifications can offer a little more, right?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of different reasons why you might want to get a certification. So one reason is so that you can learn new things. So certifications provide a really great way for you to learn different things. It's one of the ways I learned a lot about security, so that's one of the reasons I really like certifications, is because every time I learn something new. And then another reason is that they validate your experience, and this comes really in handy when you're filling out job applications and you're trying to prove your proficiency in something. It shows dedication that you're willing to, take the time to get these certifications. It shows that you have the knowledge that these certifications are testing for. So from an employer's perspective, it's really good to have certifications because it shows that you take the time to get them. It shows that you take the time to learn about these things. And certifications are also renewed or reinvented, I want to say, every like 3 years or so. They maintain relevant to today. So if you get one, it's going to show that you have experience today. And then they also require that you get what's called continuing education credits in order to renew that certification. So it shows that, you're taking the time to renew your certification every 3 years. You're taking the time to continue to learn because you have these certifications still and you're required to do so. So my biggest two reasons are, so it can help validate your experience and look more attractive to employers, and it can also teach you a whole lot of things. And I'm sure Ram has some stuff to add to that. So do you want to add to that, Ram?
Sure. So really, one of the things about certifications is that, yes, a lot of them are fairly heavily memorization based, but a lot of them, the CompTIA, the ISC squared, the offensive security ones, a lot of them kind of demonstrate that you can think your way out of a wet paper bag. They do require some degree of critical thinking and not just memorization. And I mean, like, from a hiring perspective, InfoSec is a pretty hot industry, and the jobs in InfoSec are pretty awesome. And the certs might not be required, but they never hurt to have.
Yep.
And here's one of the things: a lot of the InfoSec jobs are with like government contractors, and they use CompTIA to a fairly large extent. So those are some of the most useful, like, career-wise. So yeah, certs, they're a good way to show that you're keeping current with your knowledge and your skill set, that you can exercise some degree of critical thinking, that you have some degree of ambition, which is, definitely something that people are looking for. And generally, they tend to indicate that your knowledge is at least relatively current, because you have to do some continuing education in order to keep them maintained. So basically what Chloe said.
Yeah, and these are manageable to do, on top of your work, right? I mean, Chloe, Ram, you're both doing these. It's maybe a little more manageable than, trying to do school with a full-time job here.
I did actually just do a year of school with a full-time job. Went to Western
It can be
Governors
done.
University and got like 10 certs out of it. It's very cost-effective if you are willing to push really hard, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons here to do these, and as you both mentioned, it looks great, on a job application, and internally here at Defiant and Wordfence, we discuss certifications a lot. We're all interested, and we're always talking about the next one here, and there's a lot of motivation. And we're going to talk about some different resources today for those of you who are just getting started. You're not sure how to stay motivated with this. There is help, and Chloe and Ram are going to talk about that. But before we get there, let's talk about certifying bodies. So, Chloe, for somebody who might be brand new, has no clue what that means, can you give us some insight there?
Yeah, so you're going to have several different certifying bodies, which are basically different organizations that develop, maintain, manage these certification programs. So just a couple off the top of my head are EC Council, CompTIA, Offensive Security, eLearn Security, ISACA, ISC Squared. And those are just a few of the core ones, main ones that you see. I don't know if I said CompTIA, but I feel like I did, just to say it again, just in case I didn't. And so, Ram, do you want to tell us a little bit about IC Squared to get us started?
Yeah, let's start with ISC squared. They're the ones who do CISSP, SSCP, not to be confused with SCP, that does not test your ability to contain subject number 627. Anyways, CISSP is still one of the most prestigious certs out there. ISC Squared tends to have a fairly heavy blue team defensive and management focus. And there's a lot of emphasis on good judgment and best practices in their exams. Like, they're going to ask you, what's the best way to handle this situation? What should your priority be in this situation? They are very much intended to validate your skill set because they do require you to have a certain number of years of experience in, security in order to be fully certified. So they're very much a validating of your skill set rather than solely a learning cert. And let's move on to offensive security, which I don't have any certs in yet, but Chloe has a couple.
Yeah, so offensive security, I'm going to geek out for a second here because I absolutely love offensive security. So what they have is a bunch of different certifications that test your ability to perform things hands-on in like these insanely challenging ways. So they have the OSCP, OSWP, OSED, OSCP, OSWE. So you'll notice all of those start with OS, which is offensive security, and then it goes into, you know, certified professional or security professional or whatnot. And so they have these insane certifications that are not actually insane. I'm just saying insane, but they are very challenging. They're all I'm trying to figure out the right words for this, but basically the OSCP, for example, is a 24-hour hands-on certification that you have to find vulnerabilities and you have to exploit the vulnerabilities and then write a report for it. And then there are other ones, the OSCP, OSED, OSWE, those are all 48-hour exams where you're doing the same thing. And you're, you know, finding these things, and you have to, it's like real world, kind of CTF-y, kind of a mix between the two. And a CTF is to capture the flag. So basically you're exploiting things to find flags and software and stuff. So offensive security tests your ability to do offensive security, so pen testing type things. It's one of my favorite companies out there, if you couldn't tell. Aside from CompTIA, that's my other favorite. So yeah, I hope I covered that well enough. Rim, do you want to talk about EC Council?
Yeah, let's talk about EC Council. So they tend to be very memorization heavy, and they tend to want you to memorize a lot of very specific vendor specific tools. But they're the ones that make the CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker. So you may have heard of them. It's still reasonably well thought of. It's less of a mandatory introductory cert than it used to be, and I think that part of that is that other certifying bodies are starting to have, you know, basically better entry level certs. But you know, they're still a certifying body that shouldn't be discounted. They do the CHFI, Certified Hacking Forensic Investigator, which I have, which is pretty much the hardest cert I've taken just because there was so much to memorize. But yeah, if you're good at memorizing stuff, EC Council is definitely a good place to get your certs from. And on to CompTIA.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100% on EC Council. Lots of memorization. And one thing I forgot to mention with the offensive security certifications is WP Scan. It's a vulnerability database. They're actually giving away a free OSCP course exam voucher to anyone that's, or not to anyone, to one lucky person that submits a vulnerability to their database by June 1st. It's a $1,000 certification. So if you can find a vulnerability and you want the OSCP certification, highly recommend submitting a vulnerability to them just to try. I just thought that was really cool that they're doing that. So I just wanted to give that a shout out for you guys. So now let's go into CompTIA. This is probably one of the best, you know, foundational certification companies there is. I would say that's my personal opinion. But they have, you know, all sorts of different certifications. They have some that focus on networking, one that focuses on, you know, like computer hardware and stuff. They have, you know, a whole range of security ones. I think they have a data plus one now, which focuses on data. But this body, you know, encompasses, you know, getting started and, you know, those foundational levels of knowledge, which I really like and appreciate. And they're also extremely affordable, which I think is really great when you're getting started out. So I highly recommend, you know, looking into the CompTIA certifications and that certifying body. I have a lot of respect for them. And I think Ram can also vouch for them as well. And so that will lead us into GIAC, which is the next certifying body. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Ram? I know you have one there.
Yeah, I have a GWAP, which is a GX Certified Web Application Penetration Tester. I do want to add a special mention to them. The GX certs are really pricey if you're getting them full price, but if you can find a way to get one without paying full price, get a company to pay for it, do their work study program, they're basically a boot camp crash course in whatever you're learning. There's a lot of hands-on practical learning. There's their open book exams. This doesn't necessarily mean they're easy. About 60, I want to say only about 60% of the people in the class I took actually passed on their first try. But the fact that there's that pass rate with them being open book sort of speaks to the amount that gets covered. But like, if you can find a way to get one without paying full price, do it, because it will take you from like 0 to competent in a very short amount of time. And on to ISAC, which I don't think either of us have actually got any certs from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, let's talk about that one. So just real quick on the GIAC, they have something called the SANS Work Study Program, which is one of those affordable ways to, get one of those certifications. I've looked into it a little bit. You pay $2,500 and you have to. Yeah, that sounds like a lot. You have to pay that, and then you volunteer a week of your time to moderate or facilitate a classroom. Normally those certs are about $8,000, but if you do the work study program, it's $2,500. So if you're really interested in that, then I would recommend looking into that. You could put it on your resume that you helped facilitate a classroom and stuff. So it will provide a lot of benefit there. So that's just one of those ways that you can get that a little bit cheaper. So just keep that in mind if you're interested in that. And then ISACA, this is like CISM, CISA. I don't think anyone at the company has one of their certifications, but those are more like managerial, those kinds of certs. So just an honorable mention for them there. And then after that, we have eLearn Security, which is, I want to say, an up-and-coming certifying body. But I actually really like them because what they do is they give you, so right now they actually switched to a new platform. It's called INE, and for $749 a year, or they have a sale right now for $499 a year. Yeah, you get all of their.
I'm gonna sign up.
Yeah, I want to too. They give you all of their course materials. So they have, exploit development. They have web application penetration testing. They have literally a whole range, just general pen testing. And for that price for the entire year, you get that. And then you have to pay for their certifications on top of it. Those range in price, but their certifications are like 7 days for a lot of them, but some of them are a little bit shorter. But you get like 7 days, and it simulates real world like penetration test, for example. So you have 7 days to find all the vulnerabilities in an application, for example, and then you write a report and then you submit it. And one of the cool things about them as well is if you fail on the first attempt, they actually give you feedback to allow you to retake the test free of charge. They give you feedback on what you missed. So I really like them because they give you a lot of material to learn, and it's one of those that's really focused on learning. So I think that's really cool, and they're up and coming. They're not as requested and stuff, but definitely if you want to learn new things, I highly recommend that company.
So a little recap on the prices. We've mentioned some of the pricing. Are the SANS work study program, is that going to be the higher end, whereas CompTIA is on the lower, more affordable end?
Yeah, CompTIA tends to be, I want to say, around $350 for the actual exam, and retakes are a little bit cheaper. And I want to say that the ISC Squared and EC Council certs are roughly the same pricing for the exam. The actual GIAC exams themselves are not that expensive. It's just the training courses that are super expensive. So, like, even the exams are still, like, I want to say several $100s, but you can just study and take the exam if you really want to.
Now, Chloe, you had mentioned receiving some feedback on an exam where maybe you had failed. So let's get into community support, some other places where you can get support and feedback and just get prepared for these. What do you typically use whenever you're getting ready?
I refuse to believe Chloe's ever failed an exam in her life, by the way.
Well, I actually failed the CHFI once, so I have failed. And I took the PenTest Plus beta, so I did fail 2 exams twice, so yeah.
Well, CHFI was super hard, so I completely understand that.
Yeah, luckily I had a voucher from work, and then I had a voucher from WGU, which is a great college for security. Just shout out to that if you're interested in getting a bunch of certifications and getting a degree at the same time. That's what Ram did, and I believe he liked it.
I did. I got a ton of certs, and it was, I now have a 4-year degree in a year. Or I will have a 4-year degree as soon as they process the graduation thing.
And going back to the price, being that these are more affordable, it's, maybe your company will cover these. And if not, a plug, we are hiring. You can go to defiant.com/employment. We have multiple positions open. And as Chloe has mentioned previously on live, we cover certifications, right, Chloe?
Yeah, we cover certifications and tuition reimbursement. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you're set there. So we're talking about community support. Maybe you're just getting ready to start your first certification. Chloe, where are you going to recommend somebody starts looking to get ready?
Yeah, so one of the really cool things is, there's a lot of different communities out there. So, one thing I recommend doing is getting involved in these different communities to have them help you, you maybe help them, just provide feedback to each other. If you're just getting started, you're really new to security and you don't really know where to begin or you need resources and such, joining these different communities can be really helpful because everybody's helpful. And so you can ask questions, see what people use and such. So what I recommend doing is joining a couple of Discord channels. Discord is basically like a chat platform, basically in the simplest terms. And there's different channels. So if you ever use Slack, it's just like that. And then you have different channels to, go in and interact with other people. So the three that I would recommend off the top of my head are InfoSec Prep, Cert Station, and the Offensive Security Discord. The Cert Station and InfoSec Prep have a bunch of different channels for like all the different certifications that you can join and talk to people and, just get advice and things like that. And then the offensive security one is solely offensive security certification. So that one is its own little world. But basically, you can sign up a Discord account and then you'll have all those on the left bar. And then you can just hop into each one if you want to. Those are really great. So you can interact, as I've said. But on top of that, I highly recommend finding Reddit channels, subreddits for for the certifications you're getting. So for example, CompTIA has one, and it's really awesome to see other people passing and see other people, start from not knowing anything to, getting the certification is really inspiring, and it really helps you, push through. At least it helps me push through, seeing other people pass and everything. And then you can also ask questions there, and you can see other resources that people are using to maybe help you learn and help you study a little bit better. So I highly recommend, checking out the Reddits and the Discords and getting community help from those.
Ram, anything to add there? Whenever you're getting ready, are these some of the same things that you're looking at?
Like I said, I kind of most of my certifications I got through like a specific like degree course of study that had sort of e-learning materials. I find that if you can find a place to find practice tests, they can be really useful, but take them with a grain of salt because the practice tests tend to be both harder and not quite as good quality as the actual exams for almost every cert I've taken, but they can still give you a really good feel for what kind of stuff you're likely to see. And I kind of want to sort of move on to the fact that, we refer to a lot of these certs as like entry level, but entry level certs are honestly some of the hardest, especially if you're starting out from scratch. And a big part of that is that there's a lot of background knowledge to cover. Not everyone's going to find them easy. There's a lot of memorization. There's a lot of new concepts. And yes, there are way too many acronyms that each certifying body and like specialized terms that certifying bodies keep trying to make a thing, like spimming. Spimming's not going to be a thing. That's spam over instant message, by the way. But yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, don't feel too bad if you start studying for these and it seems impossible to memorize which port RDP is on. I mean, and like, traditional like memorization aids like flashcards also help a lot. Like I have never in my life needed to make flashcards, and I needed to make flashcards for that CHFI that Chloe and I both took because that thing was insane with the memorization. Yeah, but like flashcards actually help. And again, like if you've got like a learning disability or something, these might be a lot harder because of the like acronyms and stuff, but most testing providers are willing to provide accommodations, but you do have to ask for them ahead of time before actually scheduling the exam. What I can say is that it gets easier after you get your first few certs. The beginning certs are often the hardest because they cover so much background knowledge. But once you've got a few of them under your belt, you start seeing the same patterns and concepts and getting a sense for what each certifying body is looking for. I will say that if there is one non-security cert that will make your security certs a lot easier, it's Network Plus. But Network Plus is actually pretty hard, especially if you're new to IT, but even if you're not. So it's not mandatory. It's specifically the subnetting stuff tends to end up being useful for Security Plus, but that's also like one of the hardest parts of Network Plus. So yeah.
So somebody's tuning into the stream or watching this video after the fact, and they're interested in WordPress and security. They're looking for their first, maybe they're an entry level certification. Where are you recommending they go?
Honestly, I think Chloe and I are both kind of in agreement on this. Everyone should start with Security Plus. It does help a lot to have background IT knowledge, as I mentioned, and especially networking knowledge, but, it's not mandatory. What it will do is introduce you to concepts that'll show up again and again in other certs. And, we mentioned both Security Plus and SSCP here, and there's a ton of overlap between them. I took my SSCP pretty shortly after my Security Plus, and I think Chloe did too, right? And that's the thing. Security Plus does a bit more testing on like basic fundamental tech knowledge, and SSCP tends to do more testing on like judgment. But you are going to need to do some individual study for each cert. But studying for both is not going to take twice as long as studying for each one individually. It is important to notice that Security Plus doesn't have any sort of work experience requirements, but the SSCP does have a 1-year work experience requirement in at least one of the security domains, which Chloe will cover in a little bit. You can still take the exam without experience. You'll just be an associate of ISC squared instead of having the actual cert until you get that work experience. So, Chloe, I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And so one thing I want to say real quick is getting a certification like the Security Plus is really good for if you're in WordPress, or really just generally when it comes to WordPress, for example, since that's what we're talking about a little bit today. You're going to learn things like the CIA triad, so confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and you'll learn that those are the things that you're protecting when it comes to your WordPress site. So you're protecting the confidentiality of your customers' information on your WordPress site, you're protecting the integrity of the data on your WordPress site, and you're protecting the availability of your WordPress site. And so learning these concepts and learning, what you're actually doing when it comes to security and some of the things that you need to look at when it comes to security is really important. And that's where the Security Plus certification comes in. And so this leads me into one thing I always recommend doing before you get started with any certification is looking at the exam objectives or the syllabus or whatever they call it, which is basically an introduction into what you're about to learn. So for Security Plus, here it is from CompTIA. What you have is a PDF document, and you can go through and you can learn about the exam. You can learn about how the exam is developed in here, authorized materials use policy, those kinds of things. I'll zoom in actually. And so you have the test details. So for this one, for example, you'll have a maximum of 90 questions. It could be 70, 80, it could be a little different there, but max you're going to get 90 questions. And then you have the types of questions, so multiple choice and performance-based. And performance-based is like drag and drop, multiple like drop-down choices, things like that. And then it tells you what they recommend for your experience, but it's not absolutely required with CompTIA. And then, your passing score, and then your exam objectives, which is what we're going to dive into now. For Security Plus, you learn about attacks, threats, and vulnerabilities, architecture and design, implementation, operations and incident response, and governance, risk, and compliance. So then you go through and it'll give you a breakdown of everything you need to know in order to pass this exam. And for the
Smishing?
Smishing.
Yeah. Stop trying to make smishing a thing.
Yeah. So you have phishing, smishing, vishing, spam, spim, spear phishing. So you'll learn about different types of social engineering.
Ram is not a fan of the smishing.
Yeah. So that will be the most important one on your exam is smishing. I'm kidding.
I do want to say that there's this one thing that you kind of start to see if you've taken enough of these, and that's that every exam is going to have like 1 to 5 questions that aren't actually graded. They're just there to figure out how badly everyone does on them. So if you see just some insane questions, like there's no way I could possibly know that. That wasn't in any of the study guides. That's probably what they're doing. They're just beta testing that question.
Yeah. So those won't count towards your grade either. So they're just there to test different things. So it's important if you get a question on your test and you're like, I have no idea what this means. That's what it is probably. And so if you go through this, you'll learn all the different things. So, different types of malware, password attacks, physical attacks. It'll help you understand, how people are attacking your site, maybe how they even infect your computer that you work on your site for, those kinds of things, which is really cool. And then I'll just scroll through this really quickly so you can have a look at how this whole thing looks. So we have all this stuff, and then that's all domain 1. And then you have domain 2, and then it goes in again in deeper dives. So not all of this is going to be directly applicable with WordPress, like directly. However, I believe it will all benefit you in some way. Having that background knowledge, understanding how things work, if you're just managing the security of a site, for example. So yeah, Security Plus is a really great way to start. Getting into security is also really great. So I would say if you're, a WordPress manager, I don't know if that's the right job role description, but if you're managing multiple sites for WordPress and you offer a security solution, you could throw out there, hey, I'm Security Plus certified. I know how to protect your WordPress site better. So that's just something to keep in mind, having that foundational knowledge and having that accreditation and validation kind of thing can help benefit you greatly. And then so for this, I have a couple of recommended resources. Amazon, you could probably buy this book places other than Amazon, but it's the Get Certified, Get Ahead study guide by Daryl Gibson. A lot of people rave about this book, and that's how I found it. And I will rave about it now too. It's a really great book and teaches you literally everything you need to know in order to pass the exam and gain that foundational level of knowledge. So I highly recommend this book, and then you can complement that with a video course, and I highly recommend Jason Dion. He produces these video courses for just about every CompTIA certification, I think. Really great teaching style. I really, really like it. And I've used this for a couple of them. And what I like to do when I'm doing the video courses, I like to take notes. And then at the end, I can review my notes, which is really nice and handy. So I recommend doing that. Then on top of that one, we have Professor Messer. He is completely free. His courses are totally free, which is really, really nice. And I really appreciate that. And so if you don't want to pay for the Jason Dion, this one will be perfectly fine. But if you want to supplement that other video course with this one, I highly recommend that because he actually breaks everything down for you. So let's say you're having trouble understanding, what keyloggers are. You've already read the book, you've already watched another video course, and you can just go through his thing and find keyloggers and then review that. So I find that really helpful and nice. So you can add this to your list of, resources to check things out, or you can make it your primary study source, and that's perfectly okay as well. And then on top of that, on top of the Get Certified, Get Ahead book, he actually makes practice test questions, and I highly recommend them. They're really good. He actually has practice questions for the performance-based questions, which if you're unfamiliar with that, this can be really helpful to get you comfortable with that style of testing. CompTIA does those in just about every exam they have. So basically, drag and drop, trying to apply what you've learned and make sure that you understand the material. And then on top of that, we have Exam Compass. Let me back up here for a second. And this is a bunch of free practice tests, really great. And then they also have some broken down by exam topics. So let's say you're having trouble memorizing all the different types of malware, then you can, do their malware quiz and test yourself and try and remember those a little bit better to pass the exam. Then common vulnerabilities, TCP and UDP ports. If we want to do a quick pop quiz, throw in the chat if you know what.
Yeah, I think we should give the viewers a question here.
Yeah, I'll make one up real quick. What port does SSH use? Answer in the chat if you know it. That would be a type of question that you would get on Security Plus. So if you already know that, you're already ahead of the game.
And this is why I said that Network Plus is super useful, because it tests a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And also, Susan Gerwin, you should totally get a Security Plus certification. I believe in you. You can do it.
Yeah. Look, we have a lot of 22s.
Yeah, we Got some. Speaking of chat, welcome everybody. Just taking a look now. Kristen, Dave, Susan, Will, some of our guesters of 22, Matt and Rick. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. So we're going over we're showing some practice tests. This is for Security Plus, right, Chloe? And we are about to move on to what the SSCP covers.
This is not to be confused with the SCP, Secure, Contain, Protect. There will not be any sort of eldritch world-altering events going on. This is, yeah.
Even if you're an expert there, it will most likely not help outside of some minor miracle, right, Ram?
Well, I mean, there is the secure part of it, but that's about it.
All right. And so what we have next is the SSP. This is their exam outline. This is what theirs kind of look like, and you can go through it about the SSCP. These are the 7 domains it covers. It tells you about the experience requirements. Again, 1 year in 1 or more of the 7 domains. Or if you have a bachelor's or master's in a cybersecurity program, you can waive that experience, which is nice. And then you can go through. This exam is a little bit longer with 3 hours and 125 multiple choice questions.
Still only took about 40 minutes, though.
Yeah, it's not going to take that long.
One thing to mention, Chloe, I don't know if we mentioned it under Security Plus. I believe you said, was that 90 questions, 90 minutes?
Not up to 90 questions, yes, in 90 minutes.
So if you're watching this and you're maybe afraid, maybe you have a learning disability and you're not sure how that factors in, Chloe, you had mentioned you can get extra time or some help there, right?
Yeah, I think every single certifying body will give you extra time if you need it. So they have them on their websites, how to get in touch with them and just request that. And they're all more than happy to do that for you because they want you to succeed. They're not there to be, really mean and make you pass it. Like that. So just contact them before you go to schedule your exam and see what they can do for you. They'll be more than happy to accommodate. More than helpy. I guess I invented a new word.
I like this new word. I'm going to use. I think it's very helpy.
Yeah, happy and helpy. Help and happy.
Never too much helpy.
Yeah. Okay, so you have this, and then you have the weighting of the examination, and then again you go through all the different domains. It'll tell you, you need to know the ISC squared code of ethics. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability again, accountability, privacy, non-repudiation, least privilege, those kinds of things. We've talked about least privilege a lot on the show. And then, different types of security controls, all that good stuff in here. Domain 2, again, it's just a document that you can go through, check what you know or don't know before the exam. And then once you're ready to take the exam, you can come back, look at it, and see if you now know everything in the document. And then for this, I actually got the SSCP after I got the Security Plus, so I don't have as many resources to recommend because I did use the knowledge I gained from Security Plus to help build to gain the knowledge I need for this certification. So for this, I just have this one book to recommend. It's by Cybex, by author Mike Wills. It's just the official study guide from them. Really great book, gave me everything I needed to know. And then on top of that, there's some free practice questions here on Go Certify. So I recommend checking that out and using those for your practice questions. Of course, there might be other resources out there. So if you're in those community groups, ask and see what people are using now for their resources. And I'm sure they'll be more than happy to provide you with some additional resources.
So if you're torn between the two, Ram and Chloe both mentioned they do recommend the Security Plus exam there. Ram.
And then take SSCP right afterwards because it'll be way easier to do it while it's still fresh.
Speaking of back-to-back exams, what's our next level and the next certifications that you recommend here, Ram?
So next are 2 CompTIA certs that Chloe and I both have, which is the PenTest Plus and the CYSA Plus. So, in security, we talk about red team, which is offensive security, which is looking for vulnerabilities. And we talk about blue team, which is defensive security, which is more of an analyst seeing, looking to see if there's attacks happening. And so both perspectives are incredibly useful, and I think these are actually incredibly useful if you're managing, a site that gets any kind of traffic. These are good if you want to, get an idea of what's involved in pen testing, improve your ability to do incident response, including on WordPress sites, figure out how to handle risk. But let's start with the offensive side. So these certs do assume some degree of hands-on experience, but it's, again, not actually required. PenTest Plus is useful if you want an idea of what attackers are looking for as far as vulnerabilities are concerned. It's also really useful in screening pen testers if you have a need for them. I mean, this is not saying that you should require pen testers to have any particular cert, but it really gives you a good idea of the kind of things a pen testing report should include, how it should be formatted. Also, one thing that both certs are really useful for is it kind of gives you an idea of how common false positives are in automated vulnerability scanners and how important human judgment it is in interpreting these. There is a bunch of stuff on both certs that is Windows networking related, which isn't necessarily in scope for WordPress issues, but a lot of the same concepts apply. Outdated and vulnerable software components are still one of the main intrusion vectors for attackers, and that's whether or not you're running an old internal mail server or a WordPress site that's using a custom theme from 10 years ago that doesn't work with newer versions of PHP. CYSA is sort of the defensive version of that. There's a lot of how to read logs, how to sort of see when people are attacking your systems, kind of telltale signs of that, and also how to do an incident response if you do have some kind of disaster, how to assess the risk of a disaster, how much it's going to impact you, and kind of come up with a plan for when the worst happens and sort of assume that the worst will happen and know what you're going to do for it, but also how to find out when the worst has happened. So I think both of these are honestly really useful and really important if you are in charge of a site that's, business critical. And Chloe, what's your take on that? I know you have some recommended resources, but I know you've also had both of these certs and have some insight into them.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. They're both really good for their different reasons. And then when you have them together, it's it really rounds you out. You know how to perform vulnerability scans, with Wordfence, and how to find vulnerabilities and things like that, and what that actually looks like. So I highly recommend both of those. Again, we really like CompTIA, really affordable, really beginner friendly. I just think they're a really great certifying body. And so let's get started into this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We will show you the exam objectives for PenTest Plus.
One thing I want to say for CompTIA in their favor is that they generally shy away from the sort of gotcha trick questions that I've seen from some other certifying bodies. Not going to mention which. They tend to shy away from gotcha trick questions. They do require that you read the questions carefully, but they're not going to trip you up with SFTP versus FTPS most of the time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's another reason I like them.
Yeah, they're really good. And so again, with the PenTest Plus, it tells you a little bit about the exam, the accreditation, the development, and just to give you a little bit of insight, CompTIA's exams are developed by what they call subject matter experts. So every few years, they get a bunch of subject matter experts, so people that are experts in the field together. So it's a bunch of different people getting together, and they develop the exam questions for these. So it's a bunch of people that have experience, are in the real world doing these things. So they have really good exam questions, and like Ram was mentioning, it's not going to be a lot of gotcha. It's going to be, do you understand this concept, which is really nice. And then we'll go down again. For this one, you have 85 questions, multiple choice and performance based again. This one, you actually have 165 minutes. They say they recommend 3 to 4 years of hands-on experience. you don't have to have 3 to 4 years of experience. If you have a determination to learn what they teach and what you need to do this, I think you can do it. You just maybe need to use a little bit more resources, spend a little bit more time. But yeah, if you have 3 to 4 years, this is going to be pretty easy for you. If not, you just need to put a little bit of extra work in. Passing score is 750, and the domains are planning and scoping, information gathering and vulnerability scanning, attacks and exploits, reporting and communication, and tools and code analysis. So we'll just show you this again. It's the same as the Security Plus because it's the same company. So you have all these good things, standards and methodologies. You have the OWASP, which you might have heard of the OWASP's top 10. So those are like the top 10 vulnerabilities for web applications, kind of. And so you learn all about those kinds of things, which is really cool. If you're interested in doing security research in WordPress, or if you're interested in doing WordPress penetration testing, this is definitely a really good certification for you to get. And just going through it real quick. But yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time with this. Oh, and Nmap, you're going to learn that's a really important tool for pen testing and all those.
Use it for everything. Nmap and like Netcat or NC are like the tools that you need for all the things.
Yep. Like you'll learn Nmap is so important. And again, if this looks really overwhelming to you right now, that's totally okay. That's totally normal. You don't have to know what Nmap is right now. And it can be totally intimidating right now. It was for me. It's totally normal. But if you just do a study, you have help from community, I think it's possible that you can get the certification or any certification that you want.
Bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
Break down into little pieces and just get really good at the little pieces.
Yeah, exactly. And, it is digestible and you can do it. And I just want to say that you can do anything that you put your minds to. So, yeah. And so for recommended resources for this, we have PenTest Plus, book 1. So for this one, I used 3 different books. It sounds like overkill, but I used it to fill in gaps because I had no experience with PenTest Plus, or pen testing, I should say. So I wanted to make sure I had the foundational knowledge I needed, and I wanted to make sure I really understood everything. So I used 3 books. So there's, yeah.
I just ordered a large collection of pens off Amazon to make sure that I was familiar with their, design and mechanisms. Wait, are we talking about this? Sorry,
I just tested a bunch of different pens, and
yeah, funny name, pen testing. Yeah. So what pen testing stands for is penetration testing, which isn't any better of a name, but basically means you're penetrating networks and software, and you're testing it to see if it's got vulnerabilities and stuff. You're not actually pen testing, which would be a pretty fun job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this book is really good. This all-in-one book is really good as well. And this CyBEX book is really good as well. I think it's like the only 3 books on the market. I can recommend all of them. I did my course studying from this all-in-one guide, so I can recommend that. And then I used the other 2 to, fill in gaps and stuff. And I also used all the practice questions out of them because at the time there wasn't many practice questions available. So I used those. And then again, Jason Dion, he has a really great course. So I just want to say that this video course is really good. I used it and I took notes during the whole thing. So I can highly recommend this course as well. And I haven't covered CYSA yet, did I?
No.
Okay, let me go through it real quick.
We are running a little short on time.
Yeah.
I think we can do.
Yeah, so I don't think I need to go through the whole exam guide again for CYSA Plus. But again, it's just the same as the past 2. It gives you all the details you need to know, everything you're going to need to learn. So I recommend going through that. I recommend this study guide by CyBEX. This is what I used. And it's a really good book, covers everything you need to know. And then with that, you can use the video course again by Jason Dion. Really good course again. So highly recommend that. And then again, you can go to the community support areas and you can talk to these people, see what they say about what they're using now, and see if there's any other resources you can use to complement this studying. Do you have any resources to add to that, Ram?
I hope you like reading logs, because there's going to be a lot of reading logs. But let's move on to CASP or CISSP, which, Chloe, I think you've taken both of those, right?
Yes. So this is going to be, managerial. This is a little bit more, policies, procedures, roles. So the CASP Plus is CompTIA's Advanced Security Practitioner. plus, and that is, advanced practitioning, managing things. It's a little bit more technical than the CISSP. And actually, so the course for CompTIA is Security Plus, CYSA Plus, or PenTest Plus. You could take those in either order. And then the CASP. And the CASP basically encompasses everything you've learned from Security Plus, PenTest Plus, and CYSA Plus, and makes it into this one well-rounded, more advanced cert with more technical managerial type things in there. So that's a really great one after you've gotten those three and you want to prove that you can manage things and that you have the experience to do everything. And one of the cool things about CompTIA is, so every 3 years the certifications will expire. However, you have to renew them. So you can do continuing education credits, or you can get a next level certification. So if you have Security Plus and you want to renew that, then you can get the CYSA Plus, and that will renew your Security Plus certification. And then if you want to renew your CYSA Plus, you can get your CASP Plus, and that's going to renew your CYSA Plus and your Security Plus. So that's a really nice thing. So you can just kind of chain those together. And so that one's technical managerial. CISSP is one of the most, I want to say, recognized certifications for security. It's one of those ones that you'll see a lot on job listings. Say if you have CISSP, this is a really great benefit. It'll help you. It requires 5 years of work experience, or one of those can be substituted for a certification or a degree. So that's good to know. And then you only need 4 more years, and you can get that certification and get Associate of ISC squared if you don't have the work requirement, and then have 6 years to get that experience. And so that one's, managerial policies, procedures, encryption, all sorts of different stuff. And so if you want to become like a manager of, a WordPress company, not a manager, but like a security manager of a WordPress company, that would be a really good certification to get. And so I'm trying to think, the acronym for that is Certified Information Security. I'm trying to see if I can do this without looking. Information Security. I can't. Okay. Certified Information Systems Security Professional. It's a mouthful. If you guessed that at the beginning and you were one of the first 5, you will be winning swag, which is great. And I have mad props for you for remembering that if you did it off the top of your head, because I can barely remember it.
But fast Google skills are also one of the most essential skill sets for information security. Like, seriously, we Google all the things all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I believe we have our... Go ahead, Chloe.
I was just going to say, one of the things you'll need to get comfortable with in security is not knowing everything, because you're not going to know everything at all. Like, there's so much. Once you have experience, you'll probably know this much out of this much, and that's okay. Google's there, people are there. It's comfortable, or it's normal to not know everything, and it's normal to feel like you don't know everything, even though you know stuff. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Now, speaking of these two that we just talked about, CSAP, CISSP, are there one over the other that you would recommend taking first, and would you recommend taking them back to back?
Definitely recommend taking them back to back. That's what I did. I recommend the CASP Plus if you don't have experience, because you can't get that CISSP title until you have that work experience, and the CASP covers just as much, if not more, in a different aspect a little bit. But I would recommend getting that one. It's more affordable. It's easier, not easier. I don't want to say easier. It's less restrictive in how you can get it, I guess I should say. So I would recommend CASP over it, but CISSP is one of those ones that's like, if you have it on your resume, it's really good for you. So yeah, CISSP is still up there. So maybe 1 point off of getting the CASP first. And so now just to go over some recommended well, actually, Ram, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't. We may actually want to go to the OSCP and OSWE. I think largely because by the time someone's moved on to the CASP and CISSP, they're probably a little bit more familiar with looking for resources for these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And these are going to be the more challenging certifications?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should give you time to geek out on the offensive security and e-learn security certs, because they sound really cool and I really want to take them now, but...
Okay, awesome. I'm totally okay with geeking out for a minute. So hopefully if you need help finding resources for CISSP and CASP, just reach out. I'll help you or whatever. So we're going to move on to the last of our certifications we'd like to cover. OSCP, OSWE, eWPT, and eWPTx are the last 4 I would recommend. These certifications are all hands-on. They're all testing your ability to perform actions instead of, memorizing things, which is really, really nice. So first we have the OSCP, which is Offensive Security Certified Professional. You're going to learn how to pen test and perform an actual penetration test on a simulated environment. For this, my recommended resources, I personally use just their what they provide, and I actually use, like I Google, they have what's called cheat sheets. They're not actually cheating, but they're cheat sheets on like how to perform enumeration and how to perform certain things, privilege escalation and such. So just Google that, and there's a bunch that will come up, and I highly recommend just going through those. But the course itself they provide is really good, and it teaches you everything you need to know in order to understand how penetration tests are performed and what that actually looks like, and how to pass the exam. The exam is going to be a 24-hour exam. It's pretty intense.
Sleeping is you still want to sleep during that though, right?
You want to, but you won't. I didn't sleep for 48 hours because you have 24 hours to do the test, and then you have 24 hours to write the report. Yeah, so 24 hours, I was sitting there, and like you want to sleep, but you're so glued to your screen trying to get everything that I tried to sleep, and I literally got up after 5 minutes, and I went back to work. So I recommend sleeping if you can, but I feel like you probably won't be able to unless you've gotten everything hacked. So yeah. And I remember during that exam, I said, I will never do one of those ever again.
And then you did another one, and then another one, right?
Yeah, because they're so challenging. And so like in the moment, you might hate yourself for putting yourself through that situation. But after it, like a couple of days later, once you recouped and you rejuvenated, you're like, wow, that was actually pretty awesome. That was so much fun. And so it gives you this mindset of like anything is possible, and you can push yourself to these extreme measures, and things that feel impossible. So for the longest time, my dad has the OSCP. Sorry, I'm geeking out here. And he kept telling me, get it. It's one of the best certifications. Get it. And I was always like, no, I can never do that. I can't do it. I need to wait a few more years. I can't do it. Really self-doubting on it because it's a really challenging looking certification. But I took the course and I digested it into little bits, and I, took my time with it. And I was able to, overcome that self-doubt and, learn everything I needed to learn, and I learned so much from it. So I recommend, if you have an interest in OSCP or you have an interest in security, but you're too intimidated by it, don't be intimidated by it. Push yourself to like extremes you haven't been in before. And I promise you will thank yourself after, even if you hate yourself in the moment, because it's one of those certifications that really, really pushes your abilities and really makes you think outside the box. I'm going to stop geeking out there for a moment. But again, you can do it if you want to do it. And so all their certifications are like that. So the other one I got was OSWE, and I'm going to speed up my talking just a little bit so I can cover all these. And this one is secure code review. So basically you learn how to secure code review PHP, Java, .NET, and what's the last one? I want to say C, but I can't remember off the top of my head. C#. But you
The one with buffer overflows.
Well, that was in OSCP, buffer overflows. Yeah. Yeah. So the OSWE is, reviewing code. So if you want to be a really secure WordPress developer, then I would highly recommend the OSWE. It does do other things. It does teach you other languages. However, that's just beneficial. It gives you more knowledge and it helps you learn those things. And then, so I highly recommend that if you want to become a more secure WordPress developer, or if you want to become a security researcher in WordPress, because it helps challenge you and you learn how to chain exploits together and vulnerabilities together to escalate their severity, which I'm still convinced unlocked parts of my brain I didn't have unlocked before. So I'm sure it'll do the same for you. And then After those are the offensive security. I also want to recommend eLearn Security's eWPT and eWPTx. I haven't gotten the eWPTx, however, I do want to get that one. That one is penetration testing, web application penetration testing extreme. So bypassing
Extreme.
Yeah, that's like bypassing filters and evasion and stuff. So that's like really cool. And then there's the eWPT. And so that one's just, basic web application penetration testing. I did get that one. That one covers, finding cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, finding SQL injection vulnerabilities, how to exploit those with SQL map, how to find XML entity vulnerabilities, all sorts of different vulnerabilities, how to find them and exploit them in web applications, which is directly applicable with WordPress. Therefore, that is one I highly, highly recommend if you're more interested in learning how attackers exploit vulnerabilities, how they find vulnerabilities. If you want to become a security researcher, that's like the main one I would recommend. Because again, they have really good courses, a 7-day exam where you find all the vulnerabilities, write a report, submit it. They give you feedback if you fail it, and then you can, and I don't want to use the word fail. I don't believe that anyone ever fails anything. You don't fail, but rather you find out that you need to learn more, which is a bonus. So remind yourself that you never fail anything. There's only more for you to learn. So if you need to learn more after taking it, they will provide you the feedback you need, and they will allow you to retake that and find the remaining vulnerabilities. So that one's really cool, directly applicable with WordPress, so I would highly recommend that. I need a breath. I've been talking really fast. So I think that about covers it there. They all have syllabuses and stuff for you to look at, get an idea of what the content covers. So I highly recommend taking a look at those. OSCP for pen testing, OSWE for code review, eWPT for security research and finding vulnerabilities and stuff, and then eWPTx if you want to take that to the next level and find more crazy vulnerabilities that bypass things. I think that about covers it there.
That was basically a list of all the stuff, all the certs I need to get next. So
if you ever need a break from finding vulnerabilities and threat research, Chloe, you have a career in motivational speaking, I would say, as well.
yeah.
I
feel motivated now.
Yeah.
I think there's
Yeah.
quite a few people who are watching that feel like they might be able to do this. And, as we noticed, as you went from what each certification covers, I think as you both had mentioned, you start to see that the structure is going to be similar and you're going to feel more comfortable each time through. And it's going to help, you're going to know how to study from there. So if you're looking to get your first one, get that under your belt, maybe with the Security Plus as we talked here today. And you can go from there. I believe, unless you two have something else to add, we should have our swag graphic. Anything to add, Ram?
Just that you do not need to know coding for Security Plus. You do not need to know coding for most of these until you get into the offensive security ones. So you're good on that point. But I think that once you read enough of other people's code, you'll find that coding is not actually as hard as you might think it is.
I think that's a pretty big deal because before I got into security, I thought it was all this code and everything. And, I thought it would be way too hard because of all the code. And I didn't want to learn a language pretty much. But you can do it without knowing code. And yeah, I think that's very
And you'll
important.
end up learning code by accident.
Yes.
Which is,
Like now-
I think, what we both did basically when we got into security and cleaning malware.
Yeah, like now I can write really basic Python scripts, which is something I never thought would be possible.
There we saw our swag winners. We have Matt, Giuseppe, Mick, Patrick, and Jennifer. Good job, you five, for submitting the correct answer there.
Yeah.
The question we went over earlier, what does CISSP stand for? That was Certified Information Systems Security Professional. Is that right?
We can't
Yes,
remember
we
it
have it.
either, so we had to check it. So, yeah.
Thankfully, Sean threw that on to the bottom there for us. So, yes. Okay, I think we covered a lot there. Chloe and Ram, I think both could have went another hour very easily. So we'll touch back on this at some point. We appreciate everybody stopping by. We mentioned that Defiant and Wordfence here, we cover these certifications when you go out and get them. So if you're looking for a job right now and you head over to defiant.com/employment and you see something that looks like you would be a good fit, we pay for certifications and schooling, phone and internet for employees. We have
Gym
baby
equipment.
bucks,
Yeah.
equipment, gym equipment, desk equipment, anything you need to be comfortable working at home. We have very flexible schedules. If you want to see more about that and the culture that we have working from home, you can go back last week on Wordfence Live where Mark, our CEO, had an awesome episode. If you have 35 minutes to spare and you're interested in that topic, it was a very fun one. So check that out. Also, we want to mention we're still offering K through 12 site cleaning and site audits for schools. If you know of a school, K through 12 public school in the U.S. or elsewhere, we've expanded that outside of the U.S. Thanks to the support we've gotten from those. So if you know somebody who could use our help, you can share the link that we will put in the chat. We have a blog post from a few months back that you can reference there. You can write in and we will be happy to take a look. If you're not already signed up on the mailing list or the podcast mailing list, you can hear Ram and Kathy on our podcast every week. And last week's was really fun. I got to listen to that a few times while we were getting that ready. So that was a really fun one. Go over to the footer of the wordfence.com page, throw your email address into the podcast and the mailing list, and you will hear from us here and there with some important information off of the mailing list. Chloe, Ram, did I forget anything? I think we're good to go, right?
Yeah, just thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Go out there and be certified, all of ye.
Yes.
Go forth and get certified.
You can do it.
We appreciate it, and thanks for viewing and stopping by and hanging out with us. We'll be back next Tuesday at the same time, same place. Until then, we hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks, everybody, and bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Wordfence. We have better hackers.